Welcome back to Catfish Motorsports. I'm Jeremy. Today we're going to work on getting this pile of junk out of my 62 Catalina. We're even going to do a little bit of wiring work because I guess I should have tail light. Minimum effort, minimum budget, maximum results. Let's get started. This thing sucks. Commence interior restoration. Questionable use of the term. So before we can put my freshly recovered seat in, we need to put carpet in the car. But we're not just going to throw carpet over the bare floor. We're going to put some rattle trap sound deadening in. Now last time I bought this, I bought it in bulk because I did it in my 64 Galaxy that's now sold. I really like this stuff. You can buy it from multiple brands, but it reduces sound from noise and even reduces heat a little bit too. You can put some extra heat barrier in if you want. If I were running long tube headers, I probably would do that at least under the front floor pans. But because we're probably never going to run headers in this because we're going to drop it on the ground with airbags, so we're going to stay with manifolds or maybe shorty headers at best. This stuff will work just fine for what we're going to do. So first step, we're going to vacuum off that bare metal and make sure there's no little dirt and debris under this, and then we're going to start setting this stuff in. I'm also going to go ahead and pull this back seat out because I want to put the sound deadening material under this as well. It has some older sound deadening material in that somebody else put in. You can actually see remnants of it all over the front floor pans. I pulled that stuff out because before the door seals were in, this car had a big hole in the original windshield and the door seals were toast and a bunch of water got in. Now luckily I got to it before it did any damage to the floor, but the stuff was soaked. It smelled terrible. The original carpet was soaked and smelled terrible. It all just had to go. Back seat pulled. Anytime you pull out your back seat and you think maybe it hasn't been pulled ever, always a good idea to check in here under your springs and see if your factory build sheet's in there. That's where they put them sometimes. No such luck with this one, and we're pretty sure the back seat has been removed before because it had that sound deadening in it that's not factory. So somebody else probably snagged it at some point or was hidden somewhere else. Always a good idea to check though. Before we start banging all our sound deadening material in there, while you're doing all this prep work, you should take your carpet that you're going to install and go put it outside and let it sit in the sun, and it'll be more pliable when you get ready to install it. It's December in the Rust Belt, so I guess we'll just skip that one. I hate it here. All right, we're gonna start in the back. Now you don't need to go absolutely bonkers with the coverage on this stuff. From what I understand, you know, it kind of gets to the point of diminishing returns. So if you've got 100% coverage, you're only getting a few percentage better sound deadening than you would if you had like 70% coverage. So we're not gonna go crazy and make sure the entire thing is blanketed like carpet, but we're gonna cover most of it, and I really don't care how it looks at the end of the day as long as it's all stuck down because you're gonna put carpet over it anyway. I'm allergic to old cars. I like that. And there you go, first piece down. Now just a whole bunch more to go. My little helper. Fish. She's not as helpful as she thinks she is. And we're done. Now there's a very specific reason I stopped where I did here. You guess what it is? It's because I ran out of material. So this is all we're gonna put down because this is all I have. Over in the front in the driver's floor pan and on the transmission hump here, some of the original factory sound deadening stuff is still stuck down there. Pretty good. It's in pretty good shape, so I just left that alone. I knew I might run out, so I left those areas for last, and we're just gonna leave it alone because I'm out of material and I'm not gonna wait for more to be shipped. This should be sufficient for our purposes, and the carpet in the driver's area does have some extra matting in it anyway that'll go in the floor pans here. Now there was a little bit of strategery to my sections here, you know, for maximum coverage, but I made sure to not cover up any potential bolt holes, both for my seat belts, which are back here, and our 4 bolt holes on either side for the seat that goes in. And that's gonna lead us to our next step. All right, now before we start putting our carpet in, we wanna make sure that any bolt holes we're gonna potentially use are gonna have good threads in them, because a lot of times they won't, especially if the seat's never been removed. They get a lot of rust in them, and you don't want to be in there because it's already a pain with fresh carpet to try to find bolt holes and everything. I'm going to show you a trick for that, but even with the trick, it can still be a little bit difficult. So you don't want to be fighting crusty threads on top of fighting your fresh carpet trying to get your sheet installed. So this is a factory original bolt. You can tell because it's got the little guide on the end that's unthreaded. And we're just going to check all of our holes. We're going to run it down. Do not use an impact for this. You could both snap off a bolt in it, which is a big pain, or you could just gack the threads if you got it cross-threaded or something. So take your time, use a ratchet, use lubrication if necessary. I believe I did this before once, so these should all be pretty good, but I'm going to check them again just in case. Make sure they actually get tight as well, because that could be a problem too. You might have to go to a plan B and put a nut under it or something if your threads were all stripped out for your seat bolts. So this one's good. Gonna be 6 more to go in my case, because there's one over there that has a bolt snapped off in it that I'm just gonna ignore because 7 out of 8 is good enough. Moving on to my seatbelt bolts. Now my seatbelt bolts, I don't know if they've been covered by silicone, if they're never drilled from the factory, but all 4 of them, which they're pretty far back on these cars, it looks pretty weird. All 4 of them, there's a dimple for the holes, but I can't see any daylight or threads in any of them. So I'm gonna get in here with a pick and see what I can see. I'm not sure if they've been filled with something, or maybe from the factory they just kind of put the area for them and they don't actually drill. I'm not sure. Okay, so in both cases I was able to expose a hole. I'm still not sure if those were plugged purposely or if that's just dirt all the way back from 1962. So I'm going to use this bolt again that has the little guide on it, just because it's going to be easier to start than a tap that just starts at threads. So we're going to take our time here. We're going to use lubrication and see if we can't get this to start. Not yet. Closer, starting to look more like a hole. It also seems like it's going all the way down. I'm not sure if maybe this is a larger thread size. It might be. So I've got 2 different flavors of 3/8 bolt here. We've got a 3/8 24 fine thread and a 3/8 16 coarse thread. I doubt it's fine thread, but sometimes safety equipment is, so we'll just be careful and check both. And it might be even bigger. It might be a 7/16 as we get more and more dirt out of here. Let's see if we can get this brush cleaner to go through there. Oh, I can see threads for sure. And it does look like it's fine threaded too. Glad I didn't try to force too hard. Okay, and now we see that our 3/8 goes right through there. So this is gonna be a 7/16 fine thread. Let's see if I have one of those. So I do. I also went into my tap set and I've got a 7/16 by 20 tap as well. So let's try to run this down here very gently. All right, gently. All right, now with a tap, pro tip here, Don't run it down past the hole, because it can be a real bear to get it back up if you run it down and then you've got it below the hole, below the threads on the other side. So err on the side of caution there. Bring it back up, look at it, lubricate, blow it out, clean it out, whatever. So let's try our bolt here. Oh yeah, by hand. 1 down, 3 to go. That only took like 10 minutes. Don't skimp on stuff like this because you really save yourself a headache later on down the line. You don't want to be trying to fix this once your carpet's installed. Went and drug my carpet out of the closet. Here's our initial test fit. I'm just going to let it sit in here, honestly, probably for a couple of days because it's going into the work week, so I'll probably get back to this over the weekend. So we'll let it sit here for a few days. Maybe it'll level out a little bit. I got my heat gun back there, so whatever I can't get to level out, I'll start working on it with the heat gun and see if we can get it to lay better. Now, interestingly, the carpet that I'm going to use, I bought at a swap meet for $20. I'm generally a person, especially in the hot rod community, who believes that people are generally on the up and up. I don't think the guy's trying to rob me. Hopefully it's the right stuff. If it's not, whatever, I'm only out 20 bucks. But initial test fit, it looks at least pretty close. So even if it is wrong, it's probably for an Impala instead of a Catalina. Like almost all auto carpet kits, there's going to be some trimming and cutting that has to happen. And mine, because it's a few years old rather than bought and shipped directly to you, it's been sitting in the back of this guy's truck, and then it's been in my closet. So it's pretty wrinkly. We're going to do our best to make that go away. First with a heat gun, and then with some carpet tape. And then this weekend, we'll try to finish the install. We're back. It's a few days later. This has been sitting in here. It didn't really flatten out as much as I hoped it would, but it's so cold I didn't really expect it to do it that much. So let's get started on actually putting this stuff all the way in. I'm gonna pull the front out. Now that we know we've got roughly 6 or 8 inches of overlap in there, we'll pull this out. We'll start from the center and work out. All right, so there's really not a whole lot to this, guys. We're gonna use some carpet tape in sections. You don't need to use a ton of it. You can glue it down. I don't like to do that just in case I gotta pull the carpet up. Or let's say later on down the line, I wanna put some different insulation in or more insulation in. I don't wanna have to yank up the carpet that's all glued down. So we're gonna use some carpet tape sparingly here and there just to make sure it conforms and stays where it's supposed to be. And then on the sides, you're going to have to trim it using a box cutter or some scissors or both. Like a lot of things, you can cut it pretty easily, but can't add material back. So you want to trim a little bit at a time. And then once you get it set down where you want, you're just going to trap it underneath trim, underneath kick panels, stuff like that. Actually, in my Firebird, I didn't use any tape or glue at all. The whole thing is just held in by the center console and then by your trim pieces on the outside. Different cars are going to be different as far as what markers you're going to have to make sure you're in the right place. In my case, we've got this hump here, and we've got a piece that's clearly designed to fit over that. Same thing, you have your trans tunnel that's molded, and then you also have extra insulation pockets that go in the floorboards. So we have those for the front and the back. So those are going to be kind of our markers to make sure we're more or less in the right place. And we're just going to work from that. So make sure, you know, especially you've got your floor pans where they're supposed to be with that footwell insulation, and then anything else that you have to work with to make sure you're kind of centered. And like I said, we're going to start from the inside out. So I'm going to start by putting some carpet tape, just kind of stripped over the tunnel, and then up here. You can't really do it in the floor pan because you have that insulation there. So we'll put it on stuff like this flat part here. And all this stuff is double-sided tape. So I've also got my heat gun here. We're gonna warm up a few areas of this and see if we can't get it like there. This cheap heat gun sounds like it's about to blow up in my hand. It's kind of scary, actually. I think I just let the magic smoke out of it. I mean, every machine is a smoke machine if you use it wrong enough. I don't even think I used this one wrong. I think I'm just cursed. So the scary time's here. The time's come to make some cuts. So as you can see, this would come all the way out the door. That's too long. You should mentally prepare yourself because you are almost certainly going to make a cut that you don't like, especially if you don't do this all the time. You know, I've done this more than once, but you know, what do I do it? Once a year, once every 2 years. It just doesn't come up that often. So you're not a professional. You're probably going to make an error here or there. It's not the end of the world. If you do end up with a cut you don't like, just use some of that carpet tape and put it down flat. You're probably not going to see it. And chances are any mistakes you make are going to be way on the outside, and hopefully you can hide it under something anyway. Don't sweat it. It's probably going to happen. Prepare yourself for it. Get past it. It'll be okay. Now, in a perfect world, whatever this panel is, you would actually take and tuck the carpet a little bit behind it. I'm not going to bother with that right now. So what I'm going to do, because we can't just have it sitting against this, is I am going to leave some area so I can do that at some point if I get ambitious, or if I take this out to have it redone or anything. So I'm going to cut a slit here so it will lay flat, and then when we trim our edges, that will hide under and be held down by our door sill trim pieces here. Hey, I remember what it's called. When we hide it under our door sill trim here, which is what it's designed for, to grab and hold the carpet down, we can trim that so it won't be all the way out the door, but it'll still be clearly under this. Now you can take and maybe use some chalk, or maybe try to lay some masking tape down and mark it. I'm not going to bother with that. I'm just going to send it. Like I said, I'm not overly concerned. I know I'm probably going to make a cut I don't love. Just do your best. It's probably going to be better than you think. And even if you do make a mistake, even when you do make a mistake, it's not going to be that big a deal. All right, here we go. Before you can make a cut, make sure it's laying more or less where you want. Like I said earlier, err on the side of caution here. That will work. So now, and I could even trim this a little further back. I probably will, so it's not covering the screw holes for our door sill, because you just don't want to be trying to fight through that and not being able to find the holes trying to get through the carpet. So we'll probably trim it back to where your carpet's going to come to just the top of the screw holes there. But for now, we'll move on, because I'm still going to go see if I like my parts car door sills better before I screw these down. So now we're going to slide up to the front here and keep trucking. Sometimes you need auxiliary tools, because this door is missing the spot on the hinge that stops it from closing. Makes it a pain to work on this side. Be cool. And that's sitting down there pretty good. Just like the other side, we can trim just a little bit more here, but that's why we err on that side of caution. You don't want to cut off too much. Also, when you do cut these off, keep your scraps, because if you make a bad cut somewhere, you might be able to go in, especially if you make a really bad cut, you can take one of these scrap pieces and maybe add it in with some of that carpet tape or even some glue and try to hide it. So now that would go just like that, and that's hidden down. And you know, over time, your carpet is going to lay down flatter. So if you've got some spots you don't like, don't sweat it that much. It's going to get better over time. So we're pretty much in here. The back's in, the front's in. I'll probably do a little bit more trimming along the edges, and I still have some holes to cut, like for the gas pedal and the dimmer switch and stuff like that. But we're going to save that for a little bit later. Now, again, I can't stress this enough. If you take your time, this is going to come out okay. because the carpet's generally going to be molded for whatever you're using it for anyway. And if you do make a bad cut, don't worry about it. We can fix it. You can hide it. Even if you can't hide it, nobody's going to notice it but you most of the time. If you're watching my channel, you probably aren't out there building $100,000 restorations. You're probably just making something that's good enough for you, good enough to get around. You're not Chip Foose. And if you are Chip Foose, can I catch a like and a share one time? You guys want to take a field trip? Take a trip out to the old parts car. I actually need to take that bumper in because that bumper's better. I got to take that in and put it on the other car. I've been too lazy to try to fight the rusty bolts on the other one. But so this is also a 1962 Safari. This one was actually optioned a little bit better. It was originally a 9-passenger wagon. Unfortunately, the back seat got sold. I wish it hadn't. But we're going to see if the door sills in this one are any better, if I can find them, because maybe they're still installed. A lot of the trim's been pulled off. So we're going to go through some stuff, see if any of the stuff in here is in better shape. And also, this car had its seatbelt still. So we're going to see if the seatbelt bolts are still in there, and if I can use factory hardware, I will. I bet those original bolts are still down there, but it's not worth the hantavirus. I think we're just going to use some fresh hardware. These sills, while dirty though, might be in better shape than mine, so I'm going to see if I can get these out easily and see if they'll clean up. It's funny, because while this car is in way worse shape, probably just due to salt, because I think this one spent a lot of its time in Ohio, it is, in theory, way lower miles. Like, I'll show you guys the wiring harness on this thing. I have never had an old car with as clean of an underdash wiring harness as this thing is. It's crazy. We also talked about trying to find your original build sheet under the seat. And there it is for this parts car. I'm going to take that inside. While it's way more busted on the outside than the other one because of rust, it was really beautifully optioned. This was originally a white car with a turquoise interior, and check this out. I just started to pull this sill up, and look at that minty turquoise carpet underneath. I've really tried not to take a whole lot from this car, and if I have, it'll get the other parts from the red car, because while this thing is rusty, it has a title, and it's just a really cool car. Like, somebody will want this. It's not so bad that you couldn't bring it back to life, and I would sell it cheap to somebody who was... The last note on the parts car, while I was poking around out there, I found this. It's a pin from the Nebraska Stock Growers Association from 1964. So this pin is almost as old as the car. And, you know, I showed when I built my seat that that seat came out of that car. It was sold in Broken Bow, Nebraska. And so all this stuff tracks. You know, take your time when you're tearing your cars down. You find stuff like this. We all wish our cars could talk, and they can't, but they will still try to tell you their story if you pay attention. We're going to interrupt the interior work for a little bit to bring you an electrical interlude. Pro tip: whenever you have your seat out like this for whatever reason, if you need to get under your dash, take the opportunity to do it, because it's one of the only times where you're going to be able to comfortably lay under here, semi-comfortably, and work without a big old seat in your way. So because my seat's out, we're going to take this opportunity to try and fix a couple things under the dash. Most notably, my taillights don't work. I have brake lights, I have turn signals, but I don't have taillights back there when I turn the lights on. So we're going to try to fix that real quick. Also, my windshield wipers don't work, and further, when you turn the switch, it actually physically shocks you. So that's an issue. Might try to address that as well. According to my handy dandy electrical chart here, the blue wire is the one that runs all the way back and operates your taillights. You can see I kind of got that hooked up with an alligator clip to my test light. So if we make this work, we should be able to see that come on without me having to go over there and test it every time. How's that look? Does that look familiar? It probably does if any of you guys also own old cars out there. Most hot rod projects I've ever had looked something like this. I think that'll do it for the night. Now, I know that some of you guys probably eye-rolled me earlier when I talked about the really good snap-on screwdriver end. And I get it. Ridiculously priced. I don't have all snap-on tools. I kind of pick my poison. But sometimes quality's nice. That's all I'm saying. I return, armed with new cheap tools. Hopefully this one doesn't go Chernobyl on me. Tester and a little polishing wheel to try to do those door sills with. So, armed with a different test light here, so I can show that my blue wire at the fuse box has voltage. So we know that we're good at the fuse box. So somewhere between the fuse block and this plug right here, where our blue wire is, we're losing voltage. So that's what we've got to figure out. Where is the break between there and here? And it's not just the plug, because I checked the other side too. The other side doesn't have voltage there either. All right, so I'm going to try to show this. So I've cut this wire that goes from my fuse block, which we've said is good, to this plug, which then goes to the line that goes, you know, all the way back to the back of the car. So again, we get in here on the fuse block. So here's our blue wire. You hear it beeping, we've got voltage. But then we go to here, it's intermittent. Sometimes I can get it to beep and sometimes it won't. Even when, you know, I'm holding it a lot more sturdy than I am doing it like this. I mean, that's rough to try and fix it all the way back there. I'm gonna cut 6 inches out of it, and hopefully the brake, the intermittent brake, is inside of that and I can graft a new wire in there. We'll see. Okay, so I think I got it. So I had to go back pretty far here, and what I was doing is I was just cutting back shielding instead of cutting the whole wire. You can see where I've got my alligator clip up there, and then I've got the other end of my alligator clip here to the wire that we cut, that then goes to the plug that goes all the way back. So in theory, when we pull the light switch on, our tail light should come on. So I'm going to put the camera all the way in the back, and when I pull the light switch out, we should see the tail lights come on. Note that alligator clips are super handy for stuff like this, because in order to test this circuit now, I don't have to graft a wire in here. I can just take these, clip it on, and do it as many times as I need to until I find where that break is. Okay, switch coming on. Did it work? Yeah, taillights. Now I can drive at night and smash into a deer with some terrible brakes if I want to. All right, so it's time to poke the holes in our carpet. So how do we do that cleanly? There's an easy way to do this. Cheap soldering iron. Now, if you have a nice soldering iron, I wouldn't use it. I would go to Harbor Freight and buy yourself a cheap one, because you are gonna get it good and nasty. So I keep this one around just for stuff like this. You know, I think this is like 10 bucks. Go from underneath and poke up through the carpet. There's not a whole lot else to it. Then you can go in from the top and clean it up a little bit. Your one kind of pitfall for this is you don't want the carpet to lift up. So we try to tape it down, but I'm also gonna have a helper come out and hold down the area with a tool, so when I press up, the carpet doesn't lift, because if it lifts, you might end up going at an angle and moving the hole, and then it won't line back up. So you really want that flat when you're coming up through the carpet. One other thing you can do if you're working by yourself is you can take a sharp object like a pick, poke up through the bottom so you can see the hole from the top, and then just do this from the top. That would work as well. It's just gonna take longer because you have to do one at a time. Whereas if you have a helper, just hold it down. I can stay under the car and just ram through all the holes, and you're done in a few minutes. Let's give it a shot. Wear safety glasses when you do this, just in case you drip onto your face and into your eye, which would be bad. Well, this isn't going to work like I want it to for this particular carpet, because my soldering iron is too big to go all the way through the hole. So we're gonna have to go in from the top. All right, let's do these back holes first, because these are bigger. Okay, it's that easy, guys. Because everything's a project, the two front bolt holes for the seats are not accessible from underneath on this car, which is a little bit abnormal. I've not ran into that before, but we'll deal with it. So I've just got a pokey stick here, and we're just gonna poke until we find those two holes. There she is. probably shouldn't be breathing this in. You do want to oversize these holes a little bit too when you're doing this. You want to make sure you can see the entire bolt hole, because when you're putting your seat down, you're not going to be able to see what you're working on. You don't want the carpet to be obscuring that hole. So now that I have this hole, I'm going to remove one of these bolts back here that I had to make sure the carpet didn't slide around. I'm going to put it there so then I can find the other one easier, and again, so the carpet won't move. Now that's down, we're just gonna slide perpendicular over here. We should be able to find the other one pretty quickly. So if we're counting, this is the third cheap Chinese tool I've broken during this episode. Jokes write themselves there. But this is also why I wouldn't use your nice soldering iron on this, because it is pretty rough on them. This is not what they're designed for. It's kind of as expected. While I did pretty good with my cuts, I did make a bad bolt hole there, but that's where the seat bolt goes in the back. The seat bolt's a big old flat piece. We're probably gonna put a big old flat washer over it too. It's gonna hide it, you're not gonna see it. And then even then, if you could see it, put a floor mat back here. Don't worry about it. When something happens that doesn't go exactly how you want it, don't panic. You can usually hide it. It's usually not as big a deal as you think it is. This bumper is crooked, and it's been driving me crazy ever since I bought the car. Happens a lot on a lot of 60s cars. I've had a few cars like this. I don't know if, you know, they get in little fender benders over time and bends the bumper brackets, but they do have an adjustment, and a lot of times you can at least make them better even if you can't get them perfect. So I actually have a better bumper for this, but I'm too lazy to put it on right now, so I'm just gonna see if I can make this one sit a little bit flatter. So I got under here and I got the 4 bolts that we need loosened up. And let me tell you, there are tools, and then there are tools that aren't really tools, but are still essential tools. If you don't have a big ass piece of pipe in your garage to use as a breaker bar extension, you're not doing it right. This is essential. Now the adjustment on these is done by use of these little cam bolts here. This is out of the rear bumper of the parts car. So you can see that that's essentially a cam lobe. The bolt head is off center, and then as you rotate it, it mates with essentially a race inside of the bumper bracket, and it raises or lowers. There's a little bit of black magic to getting these right, but let's just play with it and see if we can't make it better. So I put a piece of tape here, because that'll give us a nice visual aid to see if the bumper moved in relation to the tape, which is on line that the bumper is on now. All right, let's try this. All right. Oh yeah, you can see it moving. Okay, so we've improved it. We're pretty close. And now I can kind of twist it to get it where I want. By all means, try to get it as good as you can, but don't, you know, chase ghosts on this, because these things could have been in minor fender benders at some point in their lives. There's a lot of reasons why things could be bent and would make it nearly impossible for you to get it perfect. So, you know, do your best, but you know, don't spend days trying to get it perfect, because you might not be able to without like actual body shop assistance. Let's get contortionist and see if we can make this work. Good enough. A little bit of extra something for a finishing touch. Fresh baby moons. Well, I wanted to roll it out in the sunshine and let you look at the interior in the bright light, but Indiana not so much cooperating there. But get in here and let's take a look anyway. I think it came out really good for the amount of money that we spent on the thing. That looks really good. I'm really happy with the way this came out. We'll probably do a little bit more trimming in here, and shockingly, kick panels are available for these cars, and honestly not even expensive. They were only like $25 a pair. And I ordered them, but they're on back order and there's no telling how long they'll take to get here. So I didn't want to wait to release a video until I got the kick panels. So if you look in there, you'll be able to see where I'll do some more trimming when those get here. If those get here, I'm slightly skeptical. We'll install those, it'll look even better. And then if I decide to pull these B pillars, we can trim some more and hide that carpet behind the B-pillar panel too. But you can't see it because it lines up perfectly with the back of the seat. So I'm the only person, and anybody watching this, that would know that that carpet's there anyway. We did this seat on a different episode, and it's so much better than the old one was. I don't feel like I'm falling through it. There's nothing poking me. Is it as good as a brand new reupholstered seat from a professional would be? No, I'm sure it's not, but it's way better than what most 60-year-old hot rods come with, especially when you buy them cheap. And who watching this channel isn't buying their cars cheap? Plus it has 7 of the 8 bolts in the factory location. So now if I have to do a quick stop, I don't feel like the seat's gonna fail me and I'm gonna go through the windshield. You know, there's a lot of little stuff too that I fixed kind of off camera. The accelerator pedal was just screwed into the floor with wood screws. I put that in properly, so now it operates and sits where it's supposed to sit. And you know, things like that that really don't cost you anything but time, they're a big deal. Take the time to do those things, especially when you're taking on bigger projects. Just don't skimp on the little details if it doesn't cost you a lot of time and money to do so. That's gonna do it for this one, guys. $20 swap meet carpet. It's a major turnaround from where this car was before and makes the interior a lot more tolerable to look at. Last thing, we got to figure out something for door panels. I'm not sure what we're going to do there yet. Please like and subscribe. I'm going to load up my little dog and go for a ride. We'll see you next time. Let's load up. You don't have to ask twice.